Okay, as you can see, I'm pretty much struggling with wondering why Insta is not going live, although the stream key is activated. But maybe we'll figure that out another day. A very, very good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on which part of the world you are in. If you're in India, good evening, yet another Monday, yet another 8 p.m., and yet another Quick Bites with HR Bites. Many of you all have pinged in, and many of you all have sent in messages, which is overwhelming because for someone who's just learning podcasting, having such a wonderful guest come in every Monday, share such beautiful nuggets, and so many well wishers coming in and saying, "Hey, Sahil, this was the previous episode, or maybe you could try this, or dabble that, or convert into YouTube Shorts or Insta Reels." And all of that, I think it is very, very nice to get into a space where you become a student all over again. From being a student to being a rock star, I would have the absolute pleasure to introduce another rock star today. A rock star who you've seen on television, a rock star who has spent a lot of time with many other rock stars from different walks of life, having conversations with them. And today we have with us none other than Mridu Bhandari. Mridu, thank you so much for being on Quick Bites with HR Bites.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Sahil. Fantastic to be here, and I'm looking forward to this conversation with you.
Super. How does it feel being on the other side from being questioning others to now being in the spot where the spotlight's on you? How does it feel?
Well, always exciting in equal parts. And of course, there's nervousness because it's very easy to ask the questions and it's tougher to answer them. so
I so
I envy you that you're in my chair today.
do you want to reverse roles? I'm very happy to do that.
Sure.
Yeah, really? Okay, let's do this. This is going to be fun. Let's do that. So let's reverse roles. And Abhijit Bose, thank you for dropping in. Everybody who's joined the podcast live, do let us know where you joined it from, which city. I know Mridu is in a different part of the world and 9:30 a.m. for you. So with the time zone, if you figured out where Mridu is logged in from, do tell us on the chat. If you've not figured out, maybe you need to go back to school and figure out your geography and figure out GMT and time zones. But Mridu, thank you so much once again for making time. And are you seriously taking the offer of swapping roles? I'll be the happiest person.
Well, if you would like to do a special episode where you're the guest on your own podcast, I'm happy to do it.
Okay, let's do it then. Super, let's do it. So, Mridu, thank you so much for having me on Quick Bites with HR Bites.
All right, Sahil. So give us a sense of what made you start this podcast in the first place. I know
Are
that
you
you're
actually doing this?
leading,
Look at this. Just look at
leading
this. This
Ellen.
is so. Look at this. This is so up her alley. She's like started off with the first question with no preparation whatsoever. This is amazing, Mridu. Can I skip this question?
No, you can't skip questions. So when
Come
anyone
on.
asks a question on air, you cannot say, "Can I skip this question?" You have to learn from politicians, and you can learn techniques on deflecting, and you can learn techniques of saying something goalmole in a whirlwind manner and not making too much sense. But you cannot say that, "Can I skip this question?" Okay.
Okay, so then let me try the secrets you've just taught me of going goal mole. So Mridu, I started this podcast sometime last year when it was a LinkedIn audio podcast. And one fine day on the 2nd or 3rd of December last year, LinkedIn decided to discontinue the audio format.
Yeah.
For those of you who know me, know very well that I'm a very lazy person and lights, camera, action is like too much effort. So audio was amazing because I could continue sitting in the comfort of my home, in my pajamas and with no camera on and just speak. And I had a lot of guests who would come in, but then I was forced to move to the video format. Why did I start Quick Bites? I think it's a great opportunity to get wonderful people like you to not just come and give answers, but also ask questions. So you have the best of both worlds.
Well said, well said. All right, I'm going to hand the mic back to you. I don't want to totally disrupt your episode and be like
Oh, that is super.
hijack.
That is super. So, Mridu, many of us have really seen you in various avatars, right? From being on television with different guests to doing a lot of work that you do, which we get to read on LinkedIn, see on LinkedIn. And of course, Mentor Leap is what is your baby. But apart from all of this, which is great, which we can Google, which we can find out, which we can watch your YouTube videos. Tell us, who is Mridu Bhandari?
Okay, well, just a simple, regular, another person, human being. And I guess a few things that define me. One would be I get a lot of pleasure out of my work. So work becomes a part of our identity today because we spend so much time doing what we do. And I always like to do what I love. So whether it's journalism, whether it's communication coaching, whether it's entrepreneurship, I've always believed that if you do what you love, then I I I mean, work is not something that just pays the bills. Work is something that keeps my creative juices flowing. So one is that part of life. The other part is, of course, family. Family, friends, relationships are extremely important to me. So a lot of who I am, how they say that you are the sum total of the five people with whom you spend the most time. So I think a large part of that, relationships are important to me. Like my best friend is my best friend since I was 4 years old. So
Wow.
in that constant, or my family, friends, uh, relationships that are important to me, work colleagues, uh, everybody is has been there for long. Like I don't believe in just being in touch with people for the short term and then doing something. If we hit it off, then we are going to be friends for life, and I really like that once you find your tribe, you just keep it with you. And I think a lot of this wisdom of sorts comes as you get older, that you realize that a few quality people in life are nicer than having like 50 people in your life. So
Very true.
yeah, a large part of who I am comes from that. A large part of it comes from my spirituality, spiritual faith, whatever, a little bit that I like to follow, principles of life. So it's a sum total of a lot of different things. And yeah, it's. I'm thinking you did stump me with that question. Who am I really? I'm nothing. I'm just a sum total of everything that's happening around me, and I'm existing.
Where do you get this humility from? A celebrity saying that I'm nothing, I'm just a sum total of people around me, of my experiences. Does it come naturally? Is it something that you've been taught as a child? Uh, you've learned from people around you. It's so nice to see someone
I don't know
who
if
in
it's
this.
humility. It's really what I believe. I'm not trying to be like this modest person or
Hmm,
be anything. I genuinely believe this. I genuinely believe that like we are nothing without the people we love. We are nothing without a purpose in life. We are nothing without having experiences, whether it's travel or food or whatever else that teaches you something new, meeting new people. So yeah, it's just as simple as that. And I'm not trying to be humble at all in this.
right. No, but while they definitely say that all these things sound very nice, the harsh reality of life is that you will have disagreements with people, you will have fights, you will have conflicts, you will have situations where you don't want to see the other person's face. Now, if you have a friend from the time you've been 4 years old and you're still very thick, tell us what's the secret. Whenever things went south, how is it that both of you all came back together to keep the bond of friendship intact?
I think one, we've not had too many fallouts in life. We've just not. And I think the reason for that has been because both of us really accept each other the way we are. So she's not
Beautiful.
trying to change me, I'm not trying to change her. And we are very non judgmental. So when I know that if I share something with her, she's going to put on her most objective hat and tell me that, okay, here's where you are wrong. And here's where, and I'm not going to take it to heart and feel offended that she told me that I'm wrong. I'm going to her so that, she's my voice of reason and I can go to her. And similar with her. So there is an absolute non judgmental safe space where if I have to talk to her about anything in life, I know that's not going beyond her. If it's something really personal and I'm telling her that in confidence, it is not going to another human being of her life. It is going to be between me and her. So that trust has never been broken in over 3 decades. And yeah, so I think these things happen over time. And then of course, I think it's very superficial to think that you need to have similar interests to make a friend. You don't. You just have to be open to experiences. So she's someone who loves to dance. So, and I'm not that great a dancer, or I'm not even super fond of, I don't have to have like 5 dancing nights in a month. If I have even one in 6 months, I'm okay with it. So, but if she'd like to go dancing, will I go? Absolutely, I'll go. And similar with her, if I like my quiet time, or if I like just hanging out, watching a movie, similar with her. So I think it's just about accepting people the way they are, and it's about being non-judgmental, and it's about realizing that if you have made someone the voice of reason or your guiding light of life, then please keep it to that, and listen when they make more sense than you do.
Beautiful. Nice. Um, how did journalism happen to you?
Well, I think I went through a lot of different things I wanted to do. I think up till class 9, I just wanted to be a cardiologist. And then in
Did
class
you say
10,
cardiologist?
yes,
Oh,
cardiologist.
okay. Lovely. Okay.
So, so, and then something happened in after class 10th boards, and I was like, I don't want to study science. Let me look at commerce books. And I took these books of 11th standard commerce stream, and I loved business studies. And, I thought, oh, accounting is interesting. So I thought, okay, commerce it is. And I took commerce, thinking I'm going to be a finance whiz. I'm going to do MBA in finance. And then college happened. I got through Venkateshwara College in Delhi University. I went to BCom Honors, which is like the second toughest course of DU. I think the first is Economics Honors. And I
Hmm.
had like 21 subjects over 3 years. And after first year, I just realized this is too dry. This is too boring. What am I going to do? And I have been math phobic all my life. I've just never had a good maths teacher um, in school. And I'm number phobic. I don't like to deal with sums and maths. And oh my God, I cried my way through geometry and all the maths and calculus and integration and all of that.
Algebra. All of
Algebra and integration and differentiation in 11th and 12th. Oh my God, I
right.
literally, I'm so glad I'm not in that space anymore. And BCom honors was as tough, was as not just as tough. I think it was boring for me. So
Hmm.
for the first time in life, usually I was like always amongst the top 3 students of the class in school life, and college hit hard, and I got like a second division or something. And that really hurt my pride, that oh my God, how can I get a second division in life? And I cried to my parents, and they were like, look, you're not dropping out, you have to finish your graduation. So after that, you figure out what you want to do whatever it is
Right.
that you enjoy. And I think my
Hmm.
mom guided me a lot in that, because she would say that you enjoy English, you enjoy language, why don't you look at stuff that you can do around it? Even during admissions, I was getting English honors in LSR in Delhi. And she was the only one saying that go for it because you love English and you will enjoy that. And I was
Hmm.
like, no, no, English to aati hai. Why do I need to study English? I can like how naive you are in those years. And I said, I'm going to do BCom honors. So anyway, to cut a long story short, I think it was an elimination of what are the careers that don't require me to study math in the entrance
Hmm.
exam. So MBA is out because I don't want to give CAT
Yeah.
or GMAT. I don't want to study maths because quant is something I'm really not going to enjoy doing.
Hmm.
So, and that time there was a media boom that was happening in India. Private news channels had just kicked off. and I was like, okay, media sounds interesting, mass comm sounds interesting. So I started looking for courses. And I first got admission in Xavier's in Mumbai for a mass comm. And then I got a call from Asian College of Journalism, Chennai, for journalism. And I just liked that school and that course better. So, and it's India's top school when it comes to journalism, even today. So
Oh,
that's where I went, and actually I fell in love with journalism in college while studying journalism. Before that, I think it was a little bit of a hit and miss, but I do know that I enjoyed communication. So I was head
hmm.
girl, I would talk on stage, I loved performing on stage, I loved participating in debates, I loved writing for the school magazine. I used to write letters to editors of newspapers. Newspapers they had this column, letters to editors. So I had a few of those published before I even applied for journalism. So yeah, and I think the true love for journalism happened once I became a student of journalism and then started practicing journalism. So
Got it. And does the profession have a lot of entry barriers, or is it very easy to become a journalist and get into the world of media,
I don't
mass
think there
comm?
are too many entry barriers, honestly. And even when I joined a newsroom, there were a lot of people who had not even gone to a journalism school, and they learned on the job, but they excelled in something or the other. So somebody who had fantastic knowledge of politics, they probably studied history, or they'd studied international relations. Depending on what beat you wanted to get into, there were people who came from MBA and said that, we have business knowledge, but storytelling interests us and we'd like to be in the business news side of things. So people from very different walks of life, that way, have been able to walk into journalism. Today, I think there is a little bit more of a barrier for an entry level person. We do expect that you already know a little bit of journalism, because you don't want to start training them on what are the ethics of journalism and how to basically write a story, TV language, or print if it is. So you sometimes, you don't want to really get into those aspects. But if a person is really bright and we see that, oh, they have a lot of subject matter expertise and they have a lot of knowledge of their subject, then these are just tactics and tactical skills that you can
Right.
still do the job.
So just shifting gears, slightly provocative. There's only one Rajdeep Sardesai. There's only one Arnab Goswami. There's only one Palki Sharma Upadhyay, and there's only one Anjana Om Kashyap, right? But yet there are so many Rajdeep Sardesais in various people, right? In terms of traits, in terms of qualities, in, as you rightly said, skill
Yeah.
sets, understanding of a certain beat, great communication, the ability to be a so-called Karan Thapar in the style of interviewing. Um, but not everyone gets right up there, right? Not everyone gets to come on 9 p.m. Not everybody gets to cover stories or unearth stories that truly matter. So,
Yeah.
how does one cut through the chase of between being a great journalist and becoming a popular journalist or a
So I
household
think
name?
that's like saying, how does one become Amitabh Bachchan in acting, or how does one become a Ranbir Kapoor in acting, or whatever else, right? So every profession will have that. Every profession will have some people who are the outliers and who've done better than the others. That doesn't mean that the other people are not contributing to the sector, right?
Of
So,
course.
if the goal is to be on 9 p.m. news, be the anchor of the 9 p.m. news, then that's the goal you start working towards. And
Sure.
for that, then you have to, it's not just subject matter expertise. If you're on TV, it is how articulate you are, how much you command language, how fast can you think on your feet, how good are you under pressure. In a print scenario, for example, it's all right, you're not being filmed, you are asking questions, sometimes you're taking the interview over the phone, so it's easier in that sense. In TV, you cannot get stumped. If you're interviewing a politician and he snubs you on air, you have to know how to handle that. You can't crumble and crack under pressure and start crying and leave the interview, right? So so there's a lot of these things that you get trained on. on the job.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn,
Mm.
you adopt mentors in the organization or outside of it. You upskill yourself. You start testing the waters. There have been people who were in production at the back end, and they thought they want to be on camera, and they would, because obviously it's enticing, it's glamorous. Everybody thinks, a lot of people think that, wow, this is so much fun, I would love to be on camera. And the fame is attractive. But a few people then realize that, okay, I don't want to do this day after day after day, because it is a task. You have to be presentable, you have to be well groomed, you have to have language skills, you have to have curiosity to be asking the right questions at the right time. So it's a package of a lot of different things along with subject matter expertise. And if you're on the
True.
9 p.m. news, you are interviewing the who's who of the country, your general knowledge has to be solid. You have to
Yeah.
know what happened in the day, what's happening around the world. Can you connect the dots? Can you connect macroeconomic scenarios with a small incident that has happened somewhere in the world? So, all of that comes with practice and with time. So, anyone who is wanting to do that should be willing to work really, really, really hard on themselves.
Absolutely true, Mridu. But then there's also a counter to that, that someone who's, let's say, doing business as a beat, or someone who's doing crime, or someone who's out there looking at sports is equally putting in the long hours, is equally working hard, is equally out there burning the midnight oil and sweat and blood. But maybe popularity is not as much, while the impact for that segment may be very high, right? Because someone who's following the stock market may actually follow a stock market journalist and say, wow, for me, this person is brilliant because I switch on TV and I watch TV only from 9:15 to 3 o'clock.
Yeah,
And for me, a shouting match is not journalism, but
absolutely.
getting me inputs or insights onto a script and helping me analyze the company and decide whether I should invest in this script or not in a very methodical, systematic, scientific manner by looking at ratios, fundamentals, is a great journalist. So, how do you draw this divide between? And I love the way Jabir has also asked a very similar question and shared a perspective, and I'm going to bring it up on the screen right now to say impact and popularity are actually two very different things. But do you
Yeah.
see an overlap in the fraternity? Do you see people trying to chase the wrong metric?
Absolutely. There are all kinds of people in the world, and there are all kinds of people in the industry. Just like you have influencers who are there for vanity metrics, like getting their likes and follows and numbers, and not really focus so much on creating an impact for the community or the audience. You have journalists as well. So, and yes, Jabir is absolutely right that impact and popularity are two very different things. Just that it happens that people who have fantastic impact are sometimes becoming very popular, and sometimes people become popular even though they don't have much of an impact. So
True.
so
Very
and
well
those are
said.
those are the things of the audience, right? These things are pretty much decided by the audience. Now, if India's audience, large part of, say, the Hindi belt, likes masala news. Why do you see so much masala news on Hindi channels? Why do you have this news of cows flying and UFOs and whatever else in the world that you will not find on some channels? It's an ideology to follow, and that channel is not stupid to be doing it. Maybe they have done the research and found that, look, there is an audience for this. Or why do these K series family soap operas continue for decades? Because there is an audience for it. People
True.
like it.
Yeah.
Not talking about what the moral responsibility of anyone should be in creating content, but I'm just saying that there is an audience for everything. And if there is, before Netflix came to India, we didn't know that Netflix is going to have so much of an audience in India. OTT is going to be so big in India, right? So I think, to me, I'm very old school. If I'm given a choice, I will always chase impact. Impact is what gives me personal satisfaction. And there are
Sure.
people who get satisfaction out of popularity, who love that when they head out, people are wanting selfies with them or asking for autographs. And that's fine. I'm not saying that's wrong. But it's a personal choice that you make. Would you like to create an impact, or would you like to be popular? But I think as a journalist, when you start out, the it should be very, very clear that you are in public service. You are here to tell stories of public interest. You are here to create an impact. And I don't think any journalist should be going for, I want to be more popular, hence I'm in this profession. For that, go to entertainment. That's a better option.
I think you put it so beautifully, right? And you've helped us distinguish between the two, that entertainment is the space to be popular, but the whole concept of service as a journalist is a very, very nice angle that you brought across. As you reminisce your career, and of course, a great career ahead as well, but the time that you spent so far, which piece of work stands out for you as something that was personally for you very, very fulfilling, very impactful, and that truly touched you in the whole process of that piece of work? Anything that you recall?
I think it was the first 3 years of my career when I was an investigative journalist. So I had, luckily, we were, CNN News 18 was just starting out. It was called CNN IBN back then. And Rajdeep Sardesai was my first super boss. So we had a very, very white canvas to do what we liked, to tell stories that we are passionate about. And it was, since it was pre-launch days, and then it was the first 3 years of the launch of the channel, it wasn't about, it was about creating an impact. It was not about, let's look at TRPs, let's look at what sells, it wasn't that at all. It was about, let's tell stories that people have not told before. So I got a chance to travel to many, many, many villages of India across the length and breadth of the country. I did a series on child labor. I shot in different industries, looking at how children are being employed for manual labor, which was illegal even back then. And, children in carpet industries, children as little as 3 years, 4 years old, sitting at these kerosene gas flames and joining bangles in Firozabad, children in the Moradabad brass industry, children in Sivakasi firecracker industry. We shot a whole series, and in the run up to Children's Day, and we did that reporting, which was fantastic. I did a very, very impactful documentary on, it was called Shame, and it was on manual scavenging. So we
Okay.
shot in these villages in MP and UP where manual scavengers, would be at work, and we shot for a whole week with them, starting our days at 4 a.m. and following them everywhere they went, figuring out how the manual scavenging is actually deeply rooted in caste, and the caste system and how that works, and how people are treated as untouchables in villages. And we had a full half-hour documentary that we did on that, which won me the Ramnath Goenka Award. This and the uh, child labor series. So Ramnath Goenka at that point was considered the Oscar of journalism. So for me to get that in like the second year or the third year of my work was really big for me at that point, because it was very motivating that, okay, and then there was a public interest litigation group that took up that documentary and used it as evidence in a case against the local government that, these manual scavengers need to be treated better. And 10 years later, I met my source, who had led me on ground, because as journalists, we sometimes don't have access to these places. Sitting in Delhi, I don't know, if I don't know a local person to take me on ground, it's
Right.
unlikely that the story will happen.
Very difficult. Yeah.
So I met that person about a decade later, and I asked him what's happening in that village where we shot, and he was like, "It's completely scavenging free. There are toilets everywhere, and it's well developed now, and there's not a single manual scavenger in that area." And I was like, "Okay." So that made me feel great. That, okay, even though it was a very small thing in the ocean of problems that we have in our country, I felt like, okay, I did a tiny little bit that made somebody's life better, and I think that was really nice. And then I there was also a time where I we launched India's first primetime news show for micro, small, and medium enterprises. So
Hmm.
that was very exciting as well for another network where I was working, and the MSME segment used to not have so much space on television. And
Right.
we told stories of these small businesses from everywhere in the country who are actually exporting to the world and had some fantastic products and services. So that was also great fun for me. And yeah, in the last couple of years at Network 18, I've had a full greenfield to work across the network for Forbes, for Money Control, for CNN News 18, for CNBC TV 18. So it's been fantastic to do more digital stuff, and I got into podcasts, I got into Facebook lives and exploring the whole digital medium. So I think it's been fantastic, and hopefully there's lots more to come.
Absolutely. And I think it's so nice that through the kind of opportunity that you have because of your job, you can actually make a difference through people, the right people coming together, working on subjects that impact the common man and the woman, and actually going out there and making a difference to their daily lives. They may not know that you're the reason behind it, but deep within you and the entire team that's worked on this has actually contributed to the success. But many a times when you pick up such stories, you could also be hurting Western interest. How does one, do you have situations or have you heard of instances in the network or otherwise in the fraternity where there have been backlashes, and how does one handle that?
So I think that's very specific to the organization you work for and
Sure.
what the top management's line of vision is. And if there is a clear cut mandate to not do certain things or to do certain things, now everybody is getting funding from somewhere. Okay, so
Okay.
every media house is being funded from somewhere or the other. And if there is a backlash of a certain story or a certain interview or a certain whatever else that you can't put on air, because if we do this, then our revenue for the next year is going to take a huge mammoth hit. uh, then obviously, now if you have, say, if you have an Adani funding an NDTV, you will not see an anti Adani story on NDTV. Or you have Reliance funding Network 18, you'll probably not see a negative story about, because that won't make sense, right? I mean, it won't make business sense. So I don't think the
Yeah.
walls are like, okay, we'll give you the money, but you can badmouth us. It doesn't work like that. so 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 I think it depends on, but I'm sure if something that big happens that's hurting public interest, I'm hoping that people will find the courage to to still tell that story. And for everything else, there is independent journalism that's happening in this country, which is fantastic, which is great. So I think there are a lot of outfits now who are doing independent work. Again, the monetization of that, the sustainability of that is very difficult, because content
Yes.
monetization is tough. You have a whole team. If you have team, you have equipment, you have server space, you have technology to pay for. Technology gets obsolete so quickly. You have to keep on injecting more funds into it. So it's not easy to be an independent journalist today. Um, and yet, in a lot of sense, it is easier because we have the internet, and that's a great leveler. And like, just like you and I can pretty much talk at zero cost, a lot of talking can happen at zero cost. But people have to be watching it also for a
True.
news
Very
entity to.
important. Very
Yeah, yeah.
important. I think, Mridu, when we were younger, right? I think, if correct me if I'm wrong, but news used to come for an hour a day, maximum 2 hours a day, right? Uh, and that is what news was. And today, many people complain that channels keep repurposing, using the same clips over and over and over again. Now, it's very easy for us as viewers to say, hey, what's the channel doing? And why are they replaying the same story? Or do they not have other stories? Or why are they just lingering on with something that has lived its life? But being on the other side of the table, how difficult is it to really find news or generate news or stick onto news, or the shelf life, if I may say, of a certain news? How does it work? Tell us a little bit about that, because earlier we would say it's very simple. You listen to news for an hour in a day and then you're sorted. But here, because you run the channel almost 24 hours a day, you need that much of content to keep it alive. So what do you really do? How do you manage?
Absolutely. So, when you have to run a 24/7 network, then obviously you need more content, you need more stories, you need more variety. And some days are just dull news days and there's not too much happening. So, what do? You fit in some special programming, you fit in some interviews, you basically have to fill space no matter what. If you've launched a 24/7 network that runs 24/7, 365 days a year, you have those many hours to fill in. You do the math. As I said, I'm number four big. So, the 24 into 7 into 365 is what you've got to fill. And I mean, that is just a lot of content to be created. And also, you have to keep in mind that most people are not sitting and watching 24 hours a day. I might be watching at 8 o'clock, you might be watching at 9 o'clock, somebody might be watching at 6 a.m. So news will get repeated because news, the top headlines of the day, will not change that drastically unless something big is happening in the world. If there's a conflict situation going on somewhere, yes, headlines will change. If there's a natural calamity, a disaster that's happened, you will get hour by hour updates on what's happening. A train accident has happened. So, yeah, on hour one versus hour five, there will be a change in what the news is happening around that story. But there is a challenge to fill space. So something will get repeated, even though we are a country of many countries and there's a lot happening in India on a daily basis. So you're never really short on content because there is so much happening. When you look at politics, business, sports, entertainment, you pick up all the 4 5 areas that interest a viewer. It's not too tough to fill up 1/2 hour, and with ad breaks, that half hour actually becomes about 20 minutes. So it's not too hard. But every day is different. Some days are good news days. If just like budget days is a great news day for everybody because there's so much happening around it, right? So there's so much news happening around it, and that carries forward for the next 2 or 3 days because you are getting analysts in, you are getting opinions in, you're getting different parts of society commenting on how the budget impacted them. So you take like 50 different angles to really analyze one policy document that has come out, which impacts all of us on a daily basis. But yes, as editors, it is challenging for us to figure out, okay, what is good enough, what deserves to be junked, what deserves to have some more airtime. And that's a constant everyday churn that people in newsrooms are working with. So I think we get used to it over time.
While you don't like math and you've said that a couple of times, I'm going to still ask you, is there a formula that says that, okay, this story is eligible to go live, or this doesn't meet our standards, or like you said, if it's not of national interest, we're not going to play it out? So are there some parameters, any formula that you look at to say, yes, this makes the cut? Oh, but sorry, this is a lot of money, a lot of revenue, but this doesn't make the cut. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Yeah, so absolutely. What makes the cut in a newsreel is absolute number one public interest. It has to be impacting people. It has to be something that is going to impact our lives, a majority of our lives in some manner, and that's why it's there on a news channel. Two, on the revenue point that you said, that's a very independent channel decision. That and usually it's not in the news wheel. It happens over weekend programming or special programming that happens. That okay, we are getting revenue to cover this. Again, you have to set standards within the network. So if someone tells us to just cover their wedding and they will pay us 4 crore rupees just because they're getting married, no, we're not going to do it because our viewers are not interested in watching your wedding if you're a nobody. Maybe if you're a celebrity, we'll give you some short snippets of time that you got married, and of course, because that is in the channel's interest, that this is a much loved celebrity just got married and deserves, say, a 1 minute story. So you do that because your viewers are interested. The audience is very keen on knowing. In India, we worship our Bollywood stars and our cricket stars. So, so anything happening in their lives, again, you don't put it on, let's say, the 9 o'clock news, or you don't put it, or you put it in an afternoon slot somewhere. So some slots are sacrosanct, that this is prime time, this is time that, for serious news, this is the time where do a little we do in this, let's say, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., we do a show on infotainment, and we bring you all the news on what's happening in the world of entertainment. So you create special programs and you do these things. And yes, at the end of the day, revenue does matter, because if a channel shuts down, thousands of people will be losing their jobs. So let's be realistic that money is important, revenues are important, as important as the storytelling is, because that's the funding for the storytelling. So yes, there will be certain programming that happens on the weekend, branded content programming, which is not bad, which is great, because for a business news channel, let's say Google India says that they want to do a program on MSMEs getting digital transformation. Those are some fantastic stories to tell. So we co-create content
Sure.
with them. They'll come on board as the sponsor. They'll tell us that this is the work Google is doing in these villages. Why don't we help you get those stories? And in the process, there is some revenue creation also happening for the network. So that's how branded content works. And as editorial people, then we draw the line on how much of a say does the client have on the content, and how much of a say, because we have to ensure our first duty is towards our viewers. Even though it's a paid program, you're paying for the space, but the content that we are putting out, our viewers are going to be watching it, so we are responsible for ensuring that that content is good enough to be put there, paid or not.
Hmm. Brilliant. I think very, very candid views there and very helpful, because while we may have heard a lot of bites in and outside the newsroom, this is actually coming straight from you, which is nice. But tell me a little bit more, right? I'm very, very perplexed, and I find it very difficult to fathom that if an actor's house gets buggled, this burglary that's happened in an actor's house, how does it become, for God heaven's sake, national news? There are hundreds
Yeah,
and thousands of senior citizens living in the vicinity
I
whose
agree.
house would have actually, you would have had a maid servant issue, you would have had a robbery, you would have had hundreds of things. And I'm sure they go to the local machinery, they register whatever report needs to get registered, and nothing happens. And here it's as if the whole city has come to a standstill to solve one case. Is that the perk of being a celebrity? Or is
Yeah.
that, what is it? Tell me what
I
it is.
mean,
Because a part of me gets so annoyed, and a part of me is saying, okay, maybe it's just the benefit of being in that space with that fame, with that kind of aura, right?
yeah, I think it's just that. I think people uh, in India, especially, we are crazy about our Bollywood stars and our cricket stars, like I said. So if anything big happens to them, we want to know what's happening in their life. And I'm not saying it's correct to do that. I think everyone deserves their privacy, especially in moments of whether it's grief or something untoward has happened with them or their family. They're normal human beings at the
Yeah.
so they deserve as much space and privacy as the next person does. And I think we should respect that. And but the interest why it becomes national news is I think, one, the audacity of it, that oh my god, in his secure home, if he is not safe, imagine then how unsafe are we. So that's how the common man thinks, that oh, if this can happen to him, then it can happen to anybody and all of us. So there's that connect. Two, there is that genuine interest that people have in other people's lives all the time,
Where
especially
was
with
the wife at 2:30 in the morning? Where
yeah,
was the
I mean,
maid?
that
Who
is
all were in
just
the house?
rubbish.
Bizarre.
That is bizarre rubbish. And I don't think news networks have any business giving fodder to that sort of thought that, oh, where was she? What was he doing? Like, I mean, for God's sake, leave it to the police to solve that case. It's not your job to solve it. And unfortunately, but there is sensationalism in our news networks, our news cycles.
Hmm.
I think it's just it's, phases come and things change. Just like the viewer and the consumer behavior was different when it was Doordarshan era versus now. I think in future it's all going to shift again. There's going to be a churn, and this is just hopefully passing passing
Yeah.
out soon.
Tell
So,
us a little bit about ethics in journalism. Where do you draw the line? It's such a thin line, right? The Lakshman Rekha, where do you draw it? What is okay? What is not okay? Personally, from Mridu, forget channels, forget corporate houses, leave all that aside. Mridu as an individual, where would Mridu say, I'm sorry, I don't think my value system allows me to do this kind of work, versus this is borderline on the fence, I'm okay.
So I think it depends on the kind of work that you do. Honestly, I'm not in the daily news space. So
Correct.
I'm in the branded content programming space. So it doesn't impact me what happens in a daily newsroom. So for instance, you hear about, okay, somebody's got pressure that you can't do this story because of political pressure, this, that. I have never faced any of it in my life because I have not been an active daily news reporter. In investigative journalism, yes, I had instances where we had to drop stories at a certain level because we couldn't get enough evidence to put it out there to make the claims that we had set out to make. So there have been numerous times in investigative journalism where we have dropped a story, even though we might have been working on it for, say, 6 months, 8 months, because investigative journalism had a long gestation period.
Sure.
It takes time to unearth corruption and really put things together, read through documents, get sources. If especially if it's long format, if it's a documentary film you're trying to make, there's a lot that goes into it. And sometimes 6 months in, you realize that we just don't have enough meat, because if we
Yeah.
are indicting somebody into something, we better have every single piece of evidence that we can gather. If we have failed in that, then we will not put out that story. As simple as that. For me personally, in the branded content space, also, I think there are certain ethical lines I draw with respect to content. That yes, we are working with clients who have paid for that content, so we are co-creating stuff with them. But there will be a line that will not be crossed when it comes to uh, writing the content, when it comes to delivering the content. Sometimes they'll say, no, say this instead, and we say, no, we draw the line here. You cannot tell us what to say. You cannot write that script for us. You cannot
Yeah.
dictate that entire narrative that we are trying to create. You've trusted us and our vision with this on the content front. So that's a constant battle that you're in on a daily basis. Sometimes on small things you give in because it's not worth a fight. If it's just a matter of two lines changing here there and it's not making too much of a difference to the actual content, then it's okay. So it's a very case to case subjective thing. But I think for me, the only mantra is that it has to make sense for my viewer. That's it.
Beautiful.
It's as simple as that. There's no other.
Good.
I mean, you read a line, you say, is it making sense for the viewer to listen to this, or is this purely for the client that we're talking? That
Got it.
if it is, then you change it.
Sure. Would you be comfortable taking questions from our live audience as well? We have one question. Yeah, lovely. Okay, let me bring it up for you and I'll read it out as well. So, Jabir is back with a quick question. He says there is a lack of exposure towards startups or entrepreneurs from Northeast India. What needs to be changed?
I think there is a general lack of exposure, not just towards startups, but towards news from Northeast India. And a lot of us have been trying to change that, especially when, like the Manipur conflict was happening. I don't think news channels spent enough prime time on that piece of news, but some channels made it their mission to ensure that there is a daily update. There are stories happening out of there. I think what we can do collectively is, because forget what newsrooms are doing and not doing. I think today it's very easy for any of us to create visibility around any topic that we think it deserves attention. So for example, just like Sahil here has started a podcast and is creating conversations, there are millions of people out there who are interested in the Northeast. I think if a few can get together and start telling stories, and actually there are many who are already doing that as well, and we just need to accelerate the quantity and the quality of content that we do on that part of our country, because I really do agree that we don't do enough. And I there are lots of people who still don't know what the capital cities of each of the northeastern states are. Forget about ever visiting and having been there. They don't know what's the culture, they don't know what are the languages spoken there. And I think I learned a lot of this because I lived in Shillong for 2 years. So I got some knowledge because thanks to my dad, who was in the Indian Air Force, and we got posted there. So I got to live there, and I learned a lot about the northeastern states. And there is so much to learn. So to your question, what needs to be changed? I think all of us can contribute in telling more stories, whether it's on your Instagram, your LinkedIn. The people of the Northeast can take it in their hands to tell more stories about themselves. And most definitely, mainstream news media needs to do more news out of these states for sure.
So, Taber, I hope that answers your question. Would love to hear from you in the comments as well. But Mridu, thank you for sharing from first-hand experience. I think the difference between a journalist who's heard about it or has a perspective versus someone who's actually lived in there, I think you really touched points on the grassroots level. As we come towards the last segment of this conversation, I think many people we've seen, like in corporate India, no different, right? Even in journalism, after a certain age, a certain stage, a certain level of experience, uh, people, even though they may be at their peak of their career, decide to branch out into independent journalism. And briefly, you touched upon it earlier on to say it's not easy, it's expensive, you have to have your whole team, there is technology, there is money involved. But at least they appear a lot more happier, they appear a lot more satiated, they appear a lot more content, they appear a lot more in control. And I'm saying all of this just by looking at a couple of people who you and I both know without taking names, of when they run their own channels, maybe on YouTube or otherwise, on how the kind of work that they're doing. What's your take on independent journalism? While I also bring up a comment right on your screen from Priyanshu.
Yeah, Priyanshu says independent journalism, especially on YouTube, is great and highly informative right now. The way they present ground reality with factual insights is truly impressive. Absolutely. So I think the good thing about this is that some of these people who've started independent journalism have been able to do that because they are already established, credible brands. So,
Right.
if XYZ starts a YouTube channel today, he or she has 1 million followers by tomorrow or the next week because they have spent 20, 25 years, 30 years building their brand name in the business, working hard from on ground, and now they are able to do that. And I think it's fantastic that we have independent journalists now, because that just shows that they are free of pressure pull of any kind, and they are there to kind of tell that story the way they know how to tell it the best. And by following them for a lot of years, you already know what is the ideology that they bring to the table, or what is it that their style of questioning or their thought process that goes behind telling a story. And as a viewer, you have kind of accepted that this is who I like how she does this, or I like how he does this. um, and I think it's beautiful that people are able to branch out on their own and create stories in an independent fashion, because as a viewer I should have that choice. If I'm not getting all angles of a story from a certain news network because they are pressured by revenue, at least there is someone else who's telling me the other side of the story, and I have access to both. So I think it's a win-win for the viewer at the end of the day. So I hope it continues.
Beautiful. Second last question, and I know I'm conscious of time as well. Tell us a little bit about Mentor Leap. What does Mridu do at Mentor Leap? What's the kind of work that you do, and how was Mentor Leap born?
So Mentalip was born in a classroom in University College London, where I was pursuing masters in entrepreneurship, and this was about 2 years back. And I think I pivoted a few times, but now Mentor Leap in its current avatar is a career acceleration platform for working professionals and entrepreneurs around the world. And what we do is essentially there are live learning cohorts. For example, I'm teaching public speaking and executive presence, communication skills to working professionals and entrepreneurs around the world. And I've designed a 2-month course that I do. I also take on one-on-one clients, CXOs, founders who don't have the time to join any group learning programs. So we are working on executive presence, we are working on content, we are working on storytelling. We are essentially helping people put themselves out there. And you won't believe it that glossophobia, which is the fear of public speaking, is the number one fear in the world. Uh, Death comes a close second. So, so people are very, very afraid of public speaking, and I experience this in my. I often experience this as an anchor that there are people who I'm interviewing who are nervous or underconfident or not articulate enough, and I realized that nobody really teaches us this stuff. Somehow we are just self-learning when it comes to communication. I think today's schools are doing a better job, but for mid-career
Right.
working professionals, people who grew up in the 90s, 80s, 90s, they really didn't have schools or colleges teaching them any sort of communication skills. A lot of the times people are in managerial roles. They don't know how to deal with teams. They don't know how to talk with empathy. They don't know how to, what's the right thing to say, what's perhaps off limits to speak in front of a client. So I work with a lot of these people, helping them upskill and level up their workplace communication. And I just want to put it out there for anyone who thinks that you are not a good speaker because you're not good in English. That is a myth. English
Hmm.
is just a language. I don't
Just a
ever
language.
want anyone to feel that um, they can't speak well enough or they are not good speakers just because their English isn't good. Think about all the world leaders. There are very few who are great at English, and they are still fantastic speakers, and we listen to them. So yeah, I just wanted to bust that myth because it's the most common thing that people come to me with, that hey, my English isn't good. So I know that impacts confidence, but it shouldn't. And so I help people work through their fears and anxieties, and if they have a big thing coming up like a podcast appearance or a presentation or a panel discussion, I help them kind of get trained for it and speak with impact. That's the program. It's called Speak with Impact.
Super, very, very nice. I think, Mridu, everything that you've spoken about, what you do at Mentorly, don't kill me for this, but we'll put it to test. Are you ready?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, so then let's do the rapid fire. And like we hadn't discussed this earlier. For everyone else,
Yes.
for those of people who are watching this for the first time, Quick Bites with HR Bites is absolutely unscripted to the extent that some of my guests, including Mridu, were slightly taken aback to say, Sahil, is there some format? Is there like something that we're going to talk about or just nothing? So,
Yes, Sahil doesn't share any questions, and Sahil just does not tell you what he's going to ask you. And I think that's the beauty of it. So I'm loving this conversation.
super.
Let's
But Mridu, thank you for coming on. I think there are very, very few people who have the confidence, the courage, and the self-belief that it's okay. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be out there. I know so many people who would have said, "Hey, no, man, you send the questions first and only then, because you want to prepare." And I said, "You have 20 years of experience. What do you need to prepare?" Right? But anyways, let's go for this. So this one's going to be rapid fire.
done.
Please keep it very rapid. And if you can keep it fiery, I don't have a hamper right now, but when you're back to India, we'll definitely do coffee together.
Done. Works.
Okay, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Are you?
Okay, I am too. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
The deadline is in 10 minutes. Coffee, futka, or deep breath?
I don't smoke. Deep breath.
Deep breath. No coffee as well. Okay, deep breath.
Deep breath. Deep breathing is the best. Mhm.
The juiciest story you've ever covered but wasn't published, didn't go on air.
I was trying to nab an agent who used to get people admitted into medical colleges. I was the student. I sat through an all India medical exam, even though I'd been a commerce student. Don't ask me how we got there. We did a lot of work.
Cardiologist. Cardiologist.
Yeah. No, this is as a working journalist. I sat
Okay,
through
it's
an all
working.
India medical exam to nab an agent who used to take money to get people into medical colleges. And that was a very juicy story that we were creating. Unfortunately, we couldn't put it on air. Mhm.
Got it. Journalistic instinct, is it a gift or is it a skill?
Skill, pure skill.
Okay. Breaking news or in-depth analysis, what excites you more? I think this is a given because you don't do in-depth any day.
Any
Any
day,
day.
any.
Mridu Bhandari gets 10 lakh followers. Breaking news or still no breaking news?
It's not breaking news. What are followers? It's
Okay. One PR line that instantly makes you skeptical.
oh, when these articles start with one PR line, you said, or
PR
headline.
line. PR line. PR line headline.
So like yesterday I saw that article where the headline was that, oh, Arjun Kapoor talks about his marriage plans, and that's clickbaity, right? And then once you actually open the article, it says his quote is, "I will let you know when I have a plan." That's the news. So, so, so it's like, and you can be, I can bet 500% of the times that whenever you click on any of these articles, there's no meat inside. There's no real plan.
There's no real plan. While you've interviewed so many people, right? But if you could still interview anyone, dead or alive, who you haven't yet interviewed, who would it be?
I think I was very sad when two people, like Ratan Tata, when he passed
Hmm.
away, the fact that I never got to meet him or interview him, and Yash
Yeah.
Chopra. I felt
Oh,
similarly about both. I would have loved to
got it.
interview. Mhm.
Got it. Clickbait or substance? Which one wins today's media?
Oh, I think it's like Monday clickbait, Tuesday substance. It's very, the lines are very blurry. What wins for me is substance, but yeah, we, the audiences often fall for clickbaits. I do too. It's
Got
not
it.
that I
You
don't.
do too.
I clicked on that Arjun
You're
Kapoor article.
human too. You're human too. Yeah.
I clicked on the Arjun Kapoor article to
The
find
one
out
this
that
Arjun. Got it.
are he and Malaika back together? But well.
But no. What's more powerful? Facts, storytelling, or the perfect headline?
All of them. All of them. You can't, it's not
One,
either
two,
or.
three. One,
Facts,
two, three.
number one, facts. You have to have
Mm-hmm.
all the facts right.
Okay.
Uh, number two would be headline, and number three would be storytelling. Because if the headline is not catchy enough, people are not going
People
to
don't
get
listen.
you for storytelling.
Got it. One myth about journalists you wish people would stop believing.
We don't all drink and smoke and party every night and have a life that you think we have.
Some of us also read books,
And some of us are teetotalers and non-smokers and have
and
survived
some
on
of us don't go dancing 5 days in a month.
that as well.
Beautiful. Okay. And the last one. And this one's going to be really profound. I don't know why, but I think you're going to give a very profound answer.
No
Let's see
pressure.
whether you prove me right or wrong.
No pressure.
If your life was a headline, what would it?
Okay.
No pressure. No pressure. Breathe. Deep breath.
She came, she saw, she created impact.
She came, she saw, she created impact. Exactly what Mridu Bhandari did in the last 1 hour on Quick Bites with HR Bites. Mridu, thank you so much. I truly, truly enjoyed this conversation, and many others did as well. And I thought they also got inspired by your story. So
you.
thank you so much, and I wish you all the very best for everything that you take on, and an amazing 2025 and beyond for you.
Thank you so much, Sahil. It's been an absolute pleasure being on this show, and I loved that we didn't script any of it and we had such a ball talking, and I didn't even realize where the 1.5 hour went. I hope it was useful to the audience, and thank you for the kind comments from everyone who's showed up and sharing their thoughts. So all the best to you for future episodes, and fantastic that you've created this platform.
Super. Thank you so much. Take good care of yourself. Bye bye.
Bye. Take care. Bye.